All right. So thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Julie. I'm the events manager at Roundabout Books. If you haven't been to one of our virtual events lately, thank you so much for joining us via Zoom. I know there's all kinds of Zoom things going on every day of the week, and we're so thankful that you chose to spend your Thursday night with us to learn more about hiking Mount Hood. A few store updates. So we are open every day, 10 to 5. We still have our owl delivery on Thursdays, or you can do a red bench pickup if you're not comfortable coming inside the store for COVID reasons, of course. And we have some great events coming up beyond this one. So please check out our event calendar. And I'm so excited to have Eli with us tonight because we attempted to do this event a little over a year ago when the book first came out. But of course, as we all know, COVID just changed everything. So so happy to have this happening tonight, just as the weather is getting nicer in all areas of Oregon. It's a perfect time for you to pick up this book and get ready to go hike Mount Hood. So a little bit about our author. So Eli is the founder of PCT Oregon. Oop, hold on. Let me mute someone. Yeah, just everybody make sure you stay muted just so we don't have any feedback. Founder of PCT Oregon and author of 3 Oregon hiking guidebooks, Day Hiking Mount Hood, Hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, Oregon, and the Urban Trails Portland. Eli serves on the advisory council of the Oregon Trails Coalition, and we'll put this in the chat, but if you want more information, his website is pctoregon.com, and that's pretty easy to remember. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's find out more about Mount Hood.
Right, so just to be sure we're all looking at the same thing, can everybody see the title card with Day Hiking Mount Hood and the picture of the mountain?
I actually see a black screen, and I'm wondering.
Let's see, it says sharing is paused. Bring your shared window to the front. Let's see. Can you
Hold on just 1 second.
fix that on your end?
That is strange. I'm not sure why it would be doing that.
Let me try over again.
Okay. Because when you first did it, I did see it. There we go. Yep, that's what I see.
Everybody see Mount Hood now? Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining tonight. Looks like we've got a nice little group. I'm gonna keep it pretty casual, and kind of breeze through my program tonight. I'll be sharing a selection of hikes and some info about visiting Mount Hood, and then we'll have some Q&A on the back half, so you guys can throw any questions that you might have at me after I go through some of these highlights. So as Julie mentioned, my name is Eli Boschetto. I'm the author of several Oregon hiking guidebooks, the most recent one being Day Hiking Mount Hood. Yeah, it was kind of a bummer last year because there was lots of excitement about this book coming out, and then COVID hit, and then we had fires, and so everything just got put on the back burner. So we're attempting a redo this year, and again, glad you all joined us because I'm going to share some of my favorite hikes up on Mount Hood that you might want to consider adding to your to-do list this summer if you want to get up and check out Oregon's tallest peak. So let's see. All right. So the first question you probably have is, when can I go out and hike it? It's still a little bit early yet. What you are likely going to find right now is what you're seeing on the screen: a lot of snow and covered up trails. You might still need snowshoes in some areas. The timberline around Mount Hood is upwards of around 6,000 feet. And so there's still plenty of snow up there. It'll likely take another month or so for most of that to melt off. Mount Hood's hiking season is typically ranges from about late June, early July in good years, all the way through late September, early October. So it fits right into those summer months. So that's when it's best to do your hike planning on Mount Hood, especially if you're going to take on some of those higher trails, a few of which we'll talk about tonight. Couple things to keep in mind also. A lot of Mount Hood's trails are rugged wilderness trails, and so early season often sees high rivers, which can be challenging to cross in the early parts of the summer. So consider factors like that. All of this information is in the guidebook. And then there's also, of course, Mount Hood's famous wildflower fields, which typically start really bursting in mid-July-ish and then go through a lot of August. If you look at my thumbnail where I'm at, this is one of Mount Hood's most popular wildflower fields. It's called Paradise Park, and it's a real treat to get up there on really nice days. Oh, here it is right there. So this is when you want to go hike. This is a nice August summer day. The flowers are blooming, the sky is blue, still a little bit of snow on the mountain to give it some character, and a few puffy clouds in the sky to give you some texture there. So postcard perfect view of Mount Hood to get up and think about enjoying this summer. So I'm going to talk about 10 particular trails tonight. In the guidebook, there are 85 trails. A lot of those are popular and well known, but tonight I'm going to cover some of the lesser known trails to help you get out and enjoy some views of Mount Hood that you might not get from the usual crowd magnet trails, you know, like Mirror Lake or the Timberline, or what's another big one that everybody does, Bald Mountain. And so we're going to go kind of off the beaten path tonight, and give you a few extra treats. So starting with a few really nice view hikes. And again, all of these trails are also in the guidebook, and you'll notice little parenthesized numbers next to each title card. That's the number of the hike in the guidebook. So if you're interested in more info on this particular trail, just open up your copy of the guidebook and you'll get all the details about this one, because I'm not gonna have time to go over all of it tonight. I'll leave you to discover some of it on your own when you have the time. So Haiyu Mountain is over on the west side of Mount Hood. It's actually accessible on the Pacific Crest Trail out of Lolo Pass. And as you can see, you get quite a view of Mount Hood from this particular trail, way above the, what is that, the Sandy River and the Zigzag Canyons. I think one of those is also the Muddy Fork that you're looking at up there. It's not a bad trail. You can do it in a little over 6 mile round trip, get a really nice view of the mountain. Not a lot of people going out this way. Usually if they're parking at Lolo Pass, they're going the other way towards Bald Mountain. So you'll find a little bit more solitude heading out this way. Another good one to go. You're not going to get a terrific view of the mountain unless you go all the way up to the top of the butte. But you can head out to the Bonnie Meadows and Bonnie Butte, both of which are mentioned in the book. There's a really cool bird monitoring station that's set up here in the late summer, early fall months, where you can go out and learn about birds of prey that migrate across Oregon. It's a little over a 5 mile round trip, and you'll get some nice views from here as well. Not a lot of people going out this direction either. This one is south of Mount Hood from the White River area. Good road, you can get there without needing a high clearance vehicle if you go to the lower trailhead, which I recommend in the book. If you want to get up to the higher trailhead, then you will need a tank to drive that road because it is a bit of a disaster. And then another really cool view trail that, and this one I squeezed in at the last minute before the book went to publication, because the Trail Keepers of Oregon just reopened this trail right before I had to turn this into production. But Owl Point is on the northwest side of Mount Hood, off of the old Vista Ridge Trail. The upper portion of the Vista Ridge Trail was burned pretty significantly in some recent fires, and is still in the process of recovering. But the lower portion of the trail goes into some good standing forest. And as you're cruising along the ridge line there's a couple of really nice viewpoints where you can get some pretty sweeping views over the whole north side of the Mount Hood area. If you notice in the photo, if you look all the way over on the left-hand side, just below the horizon in that little notch, that's actually Lawrence Lake, which is a starting point for a few other hikes that we'll talk about later in the program. So there you have 3 really nice view trails that get you away from the crowds and get you some out of the ordinary vistas of Oregon's tallest peak. So another popular place to go hike in summertime, especially when it starts to get warm, is going and finding water. Of course, wherever there's water on Mount Hood, there's also likely to be crowds. And since we're still in kind of a transition period per se with COVID, avoiding crowds is still the preferential thing to do. So I would recommend, until we're completely out of the woods, maybe avoiding places like Ramona Falls and Tamuanas Falls, because those places are just completely mobbed, especially on weekends. And instead, maybe going and heading up to Cass Lake. Cass Lake can be found in the Zigzag mountain range, which is on the west side of Mount Hood. It's quite a big hike to get there. It's a little over 11-mile round trip, and you're gaining, as you can see, almost 3,600 feet of elevation. But once you get up there, you get some nice views of Mount Hood along the way, and then you get into a nice little pocket lake in a little wooded cirque where you can kick back and enjoy. And it's a nice place to take a picnic. Another good place to go visit for water during summertime is Timothy Lake. This is a little ways south of Mount Hood via the old Skyline Highway. The southern portion of the lake, this is where you're going to find all of the large campgrounds, the boat ramps, the beaches, and all the crowds. So what my recommendation is, and I outline this in the book, is to start on the north side of the lake, from the tiny little primitive Little Crater Lake campground and trailhead. It's just a short jog over to the Pacific Crest Trail, where you can then head south on the PCT for just a little ways, and you can hike around either east or west side of the lake, away from all of these crowds. And there's some nice little pocket beaches, there's some little coves, there's plenty of opportunity to find your own little slice of lake away from everybody and enjoy maybe a little dip without having to deal with a lot of people. And then if you're interested in some waterfalls that take a little work to get to, one of my favorites is the waterfall at the head of Heather Canyon. If you're familiar with skiing on Mount Hood and you've ever gone to Mount Hood Meadows, then you know Heather Canyon is one of the popular backcountry areas where you can get into some really fantastic terrain. Well, that area is also open for hiking in the it's not a super well used loop. It gets It's a little bit rugged. It goes into some of the higher country. You start at the really popular Elk Meadow trailhead and you hike that path for just a short distance, but then you're breaking off and you're heading up to the Timberline Trail, and then you're traversing the mountain around the east side on the Timberline, where it just zigzags in and out of these big canyons, Heather Canyon being the second one that you will pass through. And at the head of that canyon is a really fantastic waterfall. And you can dip your feet in the water right above the waterfall and catch some nice pictures, enjoy the mist. And then to finish the trip, you hike through a portion of the ski resort where in summertime, the ski slopes all turn into these huge wildflower meadows. So it's quite a picturesque hike all the way around. Okay, the last little group of trails that I wanted to talk about tonight, and again, these are some lesser traveled trails where you're gonna get away from those big crowds. Save Elk Meadow, Cooper Spur, McNeil Point, maybe for a midweek hike or off-season jaunt if you want to avoid those crowds. But some places that you might consider going instead would be Paradise Park, which I had mentioned before, via the Kiwanis Camp Trailhead, which is located on Highway 26. There are typically lots of people that head to Paradise Park from Timberline Lodge and traverse around the mountain that way. And in summertime, it can be quite the busy thoroughfare of lodge visitors and other hikers heading out from that easy to get to trailhead. But if you start at this trailhead off of Highway 26, it's a long ridge walk all the way up to Paradise Park. As you can see, it's a pretty big hike at 14 miles round trip. So you would want to get an early start for this one. But it's fairly moderate, fairly steady climb up a ridge line all the way straight up into Paradise Park. And by taking this route, it gives you a little extra exercise and helps you avoid those big summer crowds that are gathering around Timberline. Over on the east side in the Cooper Spur ski area is another really cool hike called Palali Ridge. This one is a little bit more challenging as it requires a little bit of route finding, a little bit of bushwhacking to climb up a ridge that overlooks several deep canyons. But you get some really fantastic views from up top there. On clear days, you can catch views of Mount St. Helens, Mount Adams, Mount Rainier. And when you get up to the top of this ridge, you get just an in-your-face view of Mount Hood's east side. Being a little bit more challenging, I wouldn't recommend this one for small kids or dogs. But if you're feeling adventurous and you really want to get away from everybody, give this one a shot. The next two hikes that I'm going to talk about are Elk Cove and Pinnacle Ridge. These two hikes start out of the Lawrence Lake area that I mentioned earlier. This is on kind of the northeast side of Mount Hood. It's accessible through Hood River. And you can get to these trailheads on a couple of good gravel forest roads just a little ways above the lake. The first one here, Elk Cove, is quite a lush canyon once you get up to the Timberline Trail. And you get these wide open wildflower meadows and some pretty spectacular views of the glaciers up on the east side of the mountain. This is the easier of the two, if you can call big climbing easy. The second one is Barrett Spur at the top of Pinnacle Ridge. I will admit that Pinnacle Ridge is a brutal, sucky hike until you get to the Timberline Trail. It's a lot of burned forest. It's mostly exposed. It's very dusty. So I recommend gaiters. But once you get up above all of that, you connect to the Timberline Trail and you can head towards um, a East Basin. And from there, you can access the Barrett Spur, which gives you just fantastic views of the Cove Glacier and some of the other big features on the north side that you really really don't you wouldn't expect from looking at the opposite, more populated side of the mountain from the south near the Timberline area. These glaciers are quite huge and they are year round. If you head up to the top of Barrett Spur, then you get this fantastic view overhead. And again, not a lot of people heading in this particular direction, either because the difficulty of the trail, it's quite a long one, and because of the accessibility situation. It's one of the longer drives to get to these trailheads. But all makes it worth it once you get up to the top of these trails and get those views of the north side of Mount Hood, which is strikingly different than the rest of the mountain. All right, so there's my 10 hike picks for tonight. I hope some of those interested some of you, and maybe you're considering hiking some of those this summer. Of course, there's plenty more to do on Mount Hood. In the guidebook, I cover 85 trails, so you'll find those and plenty more. One of the things that one of my favorite parts of the guidebook that Mountaineers Books does in all of these day hiking series is they put together these tables at the beginning of the books, which I'll see if I can't here, that works, if you can see that in my little thumbnail. And these tables are really great for pinpointing the different features of different hikes so that you can thumb through and see what you might want to do. It'll tell you where the wildflowers are, where the wildflowers are, the waterfalls, what might be kid or dog friendly, what are good cloudy day hikes, because you know, a lot of times the mountain will get socked in, so it's not really worth doing a view hike if you're not going to see anything. But there are some other trails that might be more ideal for cloudy days. And then there's plenty of natural and cultural history up on Mount Hood. And so check out that table and see what strikes your fancy. Each of the trails also has directions to the trailhead. There's trail maps and local resources to help you find your way about the area. And there's even a section for day hiking the Pacific Crest Trail all the way through the Mount Hood area. The PCT, as Julie mentioned, is kind of my area of expertise. And so I've gone and included a day hiker's guide to the Pacific Crest Trail that stretches all the way from Timothy Lake to, in the south, all the way to the Columbia Gorge. And believe it or not, it is very possible to day hike the PCT from end to end, from either of those points, in just a series of day hikes if you do them one at a time. And then we're leaving winter behind us, but there's also some suggestions in there for winter snowshoe routes for when we start looking at going into next winter, if that interests you. So be sure to pick up a copy of Day Hiking Mount Hood from Julie and Roundabout Books if you don't have one yet. And if you're looking for more info, please feel free to visit my websites. The top two on this list are mine, dayhikinghood.com, that covers some of the stuff that we talked about today. And then my main site, pctoregon.com, where that has just a ton of information about PCT hiking here in Oregon, as well as a lot of general hiking info as well that can be helpful. And then for more information about Mount Hood and for finding the latest trail conditions, road conditions, other alerts or information, because it's always a good idea to check before you go out. You can visit the Forest Service's main Mount Hood website, and there are links there to different conditions or information pages, so you can be sure that the road you want to drive is open and the trail that you want to hike would be safe. So that does it for my program tonight. Again, I hope you found it informative and helpful. And again, thanks for joining. And at this point, I'm happy to take any questions that anybody might have about Mount Hood and help you get out there and do a little discovery this summer.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, if anyone wants to type a question into the chat, please feel free and then I can read it. Or if you do want to talk with Eli, you can either use the raise hand function on Zoom or wave at me and I can unmute you. Off the top of your head, Eli, do you know how many of the hikes are kid friendly?
Let me see. Let me see if I can do a really fast count. 1, 2, 3. It looks like I've designated about 40 of the hikes kid friendly.
Oh, awesome. That's great. Yeah. That's a good amount. So that's great. So we do have a couple of questions. One of the first people to join our event tonight, her handle is a hiker lady. And so of course that's just great. So
she's keeping AOL in business.
Right. Do these trailheads require a Northwest Forest Pass?
It depends. That's a great question. And that every trail that's included in the book has that information. It tells you whether you need a Northwest Forest Pass or not. You think of it this way: if it is a developed trailhead, like say Frog Lake or Lolo Pass, or I think there are a handful of others like Tamawanas Falls, Ramona Falls. Any of those big trailheads that are considered developed require a Northwest Forest Pass. If you are going to like kind of far off trail, like say Pinnacle Ridge or what would be another one? Bonnie Butte, where you're more kind of just hiking or parking on the side of the road, you would not need a forest pass for those. Timothy Lake, you do need forest pass for those. Timberline Lodge, you do not need a forest pass. But Elk Lake or Elk Meadows, that's another big one where you have to have a forest pass. There's a in the back of the guidebook in one of the appendices, I probably should have just looked at this when you first asked the question, but it has a list of every trailhead that requires Northwest Forest Pass. And I've also included where you can get Northwest Forest Passes. You can get those either online in the mail, or there's a selection of vendors that have them for sale. But I would recommend finding out if they're open and have them before you head out, because I actually went up to Mount Hood a few weeks ago, and Joe's Donuts, which is a popular place to get passes, they were all sold out, and so we had to go and find one elsewhere. Fortunately, the Ace Hardware across the street sold forest passes, so we were able to pick one up that way. But I would recommend probably the easiest way to do it would be to hit up your local REI. You can pick up an annual pass for, I think it's $35. And then that covers you for an entire 12-month period. And then you don't have to worry about picking up daily passes whenever you feel like getting out there.
Cool. So we had another question about the roads to the trailhead. So are most of the trails, are most of the trailheads pretty well maintained?
Yes, with a couple of caveats. All of the trails that I included in my guidebook are on drivable roads that do not require high clearance vehicles. There are a few roads that are gravel and are more or less maintained, but they are passable. Probably one of the most difficult roads to drive would be the road out to Cloud Cap out of the Cooper Spur area. That's a long, bumpy gravel road, but it's doable with a passenger car with moderate clearance. I wouldn't maybe take a low slung vehicle up there, but a normal vehicle should be able to handle that just fine. There are quite a few little backwater roads around Mount Hood, but I chose not to include any of those far-flung trailheads just because the roads are so bad. And I have a four-wheel drive that almost got destroyed on one of them. So if I'm not going to drive it, then I'm not going to suggest anybody else drive it. So
Yeah.
but everything covered in the book is accessible with a regular passenger vehicle.
Okay. Beth asked, are there any hikes in the area that you would recommend at this time of year?
Let's see, at this time of year, anything in the lower elevations. And so I would start, a lot of those are found kind of on the west side. So maybe Flag Mountain, Salmon River. Let's see, what else? You might be able to do, you might be able to get up to Hidden Lake, which is out of the Kiwanis Camp Trailhead area. There's a few others. I believe the road to the Ramona Falls area trails just opened. That usually opens around the end of April. Let me just double check so I can be certain of that.
Because there are ones that close for the winter season, like they close down the basically like the trailhead.
Yeah, everything in the Ramona Falls area on the west side off of Lolo Pass Road, that road closes at the end of the year, usually in late November, early December, and then doesn't reopen until late April, early May. And then some of the smaller roads, they're not maintained over winter, so you're not going to be able to access those areas quite yet. So, but there are a few good things to hike now that we're starting to get into the better weather. But again, that's let me just point out, let me see, I'll share, see if I can share this.
I know the green screen acts so weird sometimes.
Yeah, so each hike is going to have a little info box at the head, and it's going to give you general information about how many miles it is, what the elevation gain is like, and then the general accessibility season. And those typically range in months. So like this one here, Indian Mountain, that's way up above Wadham Lake along the PCT. So you're not going to be able to get to that one until July. But like say the Timothy Lake loop, that is quite a lot lower. And so Timothy Lake might be accessible, if not yet, then possibly very soon.
Cool. So we had one more question. Other than day sign-in wilderness pass, are there any permit passes that are required, like there are now in place in the Three Sisters area. And this might have been kind of what we were talking about before, but there's not any of the PCT stuff happening around Hood.
Nope, there are no wilderness permits required on Mount Hood. Mount Hood has refused to follow the path that the central wilderness areas, central forests are taking. There are a couple of locations, primarily on the Timberline Trail and a couple other popular trails that enter the Mount Hood wilderness areas, where they just ask you to sign those little entry slips that are free. There's a box. There's usually a bunch of passes in there along with some pencils. You just fill out the slip with your name, the number in your party, and a little bit more info, and drop those in the slot, and then off you go. There are no other permit requirements up on Mount Hood. I do recommend and suggest that everybody, when you get to those permit kiosks, that you take the extra moment to fill those out. Nobody's going to stop you and ask you for that, but what it does is it when the forest collects all of those slips, it gives them an idea of how much traffic is up on the mountain, where people are going, how long they're staying out there. And they in turn can use that information to get money for trail maintenance. So it's good to let them know that those trails are being used so that they can get the funding to maintain those trails and keep them nice and accessible. So please go ahead and fill those out and help out the Forest Service in that regard, so that we can keep on hiking.
Right. Good. We do have one more. Beth says, I have your Hiking the Pacific Crest Trail book. Does your website have updates based on the fires last year?
We still don't know quite yet what's going on. I have been nagging the couple of forest areas where we had the fires. I think the big one, and this is the one you're probably curious about, is Mount Jefferson. Because that one was particularly gnarly. And as of right now, the forest is not expecting to open the PCT around Mount Jefferson. What the exact boundaries are going to be is still unknown. Just kind of ballparking from my knowledge of the area, I would imagine that it's going to be probably somewhere between Park Ridge, which is the big ridge north of Mount Jefferson, probably all the way south to the Pamelia Lake area. That would be my guess for right now, until they come out with a definitive designation on a closure area. But from my conversations with the Forest Service, that's what it's looking like this summer. Of course, I'm going to continue to track that, and as I have more info, I'll be posting that up on PCT Oregon. I've been in the process of updating the site, so I'm a little bit behind on my current updates, but I would say over the course of the next several weeks, look for a lot of new info to be going up on there that addresses the fire situation, any closures that we might be looking at, the whole permit situation around the Central Cascades and how that affects accessibility, and some changes with the Crater Lake area that are going into effect this year. So look for all of that to be coming in the next few weeks or so.
Okay, awesome. It's great that you have that resource for everybody. So yeah, if you have more questions, please pop them into the chat. I just want to remind everyone, obviously the book is for sale at Roundabout. If you haven't picked up a copy yet and you want us to hold one, give us a call. Like I said in the beginning, we open every day at 10. And obviously, if you make it down this way, Eli, this summer, pop in and say hi, because we'd love that.
Of course.
And then Sherry says, what do you think is the perfect amount of days to take to through hike the 42-mile Timberline Trail?
Oh, that's a good question because I'm actually planning to do that myself this summer. I've never done the whole circuit at once. Um, I would say it's a cross between how much you want to just enjoy the mountain and how much extra food you want to carry.
Mm.
Um, you can do it in as few as 3 days. If in some, fairly strenuous days. Um, and then, of course, you can do it up to, 4, 5, 6 days if you want to take it a little bit easier. But then that just means you're carrying more food. It's going to make your pack a little bit heavier. Um, I've kind of outlined in in my guidebook how to break the timberline into 4 manageable days. Um, they're um, they're written up as day hikes, but you could just as easily just link one after the other and go do the entire circuit. That breaks your hike down into, I think there's one particularly big day from Timberline Lodge all the way to the first one of the first decent camp areas, but it's a lot of downhill, so it's not too bad. Um, and then the remaining days are split up kind of equally. Um, but of course, it all depends on just how much time you want to spend up there doing side trips. There's lots of stuff to see off of the Timberline. Um, like uh, you can do Ramona Falls, you can do Barrett Spur, you can do Cooper Spur over on the east side. Um, there's a few other nice side trails to get some extra scenery. And the other thing to consider is your river crossings. You've got some pretty substantial river crossings on the Timberline. Um, Over on the west side, you're looking at the Zigzag and the Sandy. Up on the northeast side, you've got the Elliott crossing, and then on the south, you've got the White River crossing. All of those during high runoff periods can be pretty sketchy. It's best to know how to ford a big river, cross early in the morning when the water levels are low, or wait until later in the summer. Usually by midsummer, those river levels have gone down considerably and they're a lot easier to cross. So just a little extra something to keep in mind when you head out there.
Excellent. Thank you for that question, Sherry. I mean, I have, I took a geology class one summer and we had to do 2 outings for our class, and one was Broken Top and one was Timberline to a certain point on Mount Hood. There's like a little cabin. I couldn't breathe and I stopped and they left me there with the instructor's dog and came back for me.
My wife hates river crossings. She won't do the Timberline with me because she hates them so much.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine those are some big, big waters. So, well, this was great. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Eli, and for the patience of both you and Mountaineers Books for us being able to get this rescheduled. I know many people will probably be familiar with this, but Mountaineers Books does just amazing guidebooks. I mean, they really do. They just have a plethora of them, and I don't know your experience personally, but I just think they're a really great company to kind of interact with. I found them to always be very helpful.
Oh yeah, they're a fantastic company. They gave me a lot of freedom to do my books, and so I really enjoyed the experience I had working with them. Right now, I'm on hiatus from doing books, but I have an open invitation whenever I feel like going back and doing the next one.
Awesome. Well, hopefully if you do, you'll let us know so we can have you back and talk about all the amazing outdoor stuff that Oregon has to offer. I think sometimes some of us get our heads down and forget that we just live in one of the most beautiful states that is in the United States. So I'm really excited to grab a copy of this. I've got some family that really loves hiking, so I think this might be a great present for some people.
Nice,
Yeah.
very nice. Yep, Everybody have a great summer. Take care out there. Be safe. Enjoy the flowers.
Absolutely.
It's sounding like we're going to have a great summer and
Good.
hopefully no fires.
Yeah, exactly. Knock on all the wood that no fires. Recreate responsibly.
I don't have enough wood around me to knock on right now. So.
Right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. We will be posting this on YouTube. So if you have friends that weren't able to make it, please direct them to our website so they can find that link. And otherwise, you better come and pick up the book because I'm sure we're going to sell a bunch of them. So thank you, Eli. Have a great evening and a great weekend.
Thank you. You too. Good night, everybody.